Yeah.
Thanks. Okay, we're asking how many out-of-school colleges seniors have applied to, and we surveyed 100 people and got the results.
Oh, hi. Our sampling type was a convenience voluntary sample, and we did this by posting a Google form.
So these are measures of central tendency and spread, as well as the variance and the standard deviation for our data set. And the mode is the most common number that occurs in the data set, which for us was 0. And then the median is the middle number of both halves of the data set, and for us that was 1. And then the mean is the average of the data set, where you add up all the numbers and divide by how many numbers there are, which for us was 1.4. And then the Q1 is the median of the lower half of the data set, and for us that was 0. And then the Q3 is the median of the upper half of the data set, which for us was 2. And then the interquartile range is Q3 minus Q1, so for us 2 minus 0, which gives us 2 for our IQR. And then the range is the max minus the min, and our max was 8 and our min was 0, so our range was 8. And then the mid-range is the max plus min divided by 2, so for us it was 8 plus 0 divided by 2, which gave us 4 for the mid-range. And then for the variance, you subtract the mean from each data point, square each of those numbers, and add them all up and divide by the number of data points that there are. And so for that we got 3.24, and then to find the standard deviation, you take the square root of the variance, which for us was 1.8.
This pie chart is a graphical representation of our data. It was found by taking the frequency of each data point and dividing it by the sample size. Through doing this, we determined that the mode of our data was 0, which consisted of 45% of all of our data. Using the mean, standard deviation, and empirical rule, which states that one standard deviation from either side of the mean is 68% of the data, 2 standard deviations from the mean is 95% of the data, and 3 standard deviations from the mean is 99.7% of the data. We were able to create a bell curve or visual representation of normal distribution. As you can see, our data is not normally distributed because there are 3 outliers in our data, 6, 7, and 8. And also the majority of our data is at or around 0, meaning that the left side of the curve, or all negative standard deviations, are negative values that are not present in our data. This histogram is another graphical representation of our data. Along the y-axis, it shows the frequency or number of responses for each of the categories, and on the x-axis, it shows the number of out-of-state colleges applied to. This form of graphical representation most accurately shows the skew in our data and the fact that most of the data fell between 0 and 2.